Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 223rd live stream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. It is an old school, classic D&D Discussions, because today, not only am I solo, but I do not have a review for you. Unfortunately, we were not able to get everything done due to some IRL situations, but as it goes, we still, as the old saying goes, the show must go on. So I am here for the time being, and we are just going to kind of go old school with it. So classic D&D Discussions, I don't have a topic because I wasn't really prepared for just having a discussion today. But hey, we're going to try and make it work. We're going to do whatever we can. So if y'all have any questions or have any thoughts, let me know. I know that we did have something from Des, but again, we don't have the write-up ready, so that will be pushed off till next week. But I think we did have some questions from Des in the Discord. So if Des shows up, we'll talk about that new weapon that they wanted to do. But other than that, yeah, I don't actually know. Oh, what's up, Des? Yeah, I don't have anything else really to discuss other than that. So we can start there. You were talking about a new weapon, a maul, or a hammer. No, meteor hammer. That's right. Not the regular hammer, the meteor hammer. That's what we were talking about. And I do like that. I think that that is a very valid weapon because they really, I would like some way to expand more on what there is. Like, I really would have preferred more weapons by now. Like, I like the classics, but other than magical weapons and named weapons and things of that sort, I really just would have preferred a much larger collection by now of more standardized weapons. So I think a meteor hammer is great. looking at the one that I had sent you from D&D Wiki, and I agree with you. We used it a long time ago, Kage and I, and it was a great resource back in the day. I say back in the day, it was a great resource as of like 3 years ago, but it has become more of a homebrew collection and much less a notable and reputable place to get good, solid rules written. So yeah, I would say that based on what I had found, I like the idea of a meteor hammer, but considering what you had written up, I do like the idea of a D10. Um, you know, there's been a D6 I felt was just trying to keep up with more standardized, I guess I would say like low level weapons, but considering what a meteor hammer can do and the fact that it is packing such a powerful punch in such a small package, I feel like it deserves to have more of a highlight. I feel like I was talking with Kage about this too, and I think we were talking about this on stream a while back. I prefer when we also attribute, like when I'm making weapons and when I'm making things for my game, I like to attribute certain aspects to the in-game lore of the weapon. So for instance, when dealing with your standardized weapons that exist everywhere, if you want to institute a new weapon that comes and it, from somewhere else, right? Some say it comes from a far land that nobody knows of and it's pretty rare. I like using that lore to give this weapon properties that go beyond what the standard set of weapons would give you. Kage, I think, recently was talking about, modifying a weapon that normally doesn't have finesse. Oh yeah, I think we were talking about the katana. I think it was recent when we were talking about the katana, having the katana have basically the features of a two-handed short sword or long. Yeah, I think it was a two-handed short sword, but has finesse. And it was just to go around the fact that there were other variations that didn't really have that. So I think that's a great idea, because the idea of like a meteor hammer not being a standardized weapon makes me think that it would be able to do more damage, because it is not something that the standard armor or standard fighting styles would be trained or made to protect against, if that makes more sense. I know that was kind of a long-winded way of saying that. So things like the meteor hammer, I really like doing more, because they aren't what people are trained to fight against. They are going to be that rare. People being trained against a sword, I could make the justification that yes, your training will help you with everything from a dagger to a sword to a short sword to a long sword. So will your armor, because your armor was based against blades. But that's why the idea of a meteor hammer, unless you want to add that in to your backstory, the idea that that weapon should stand out in some way, I feel like it's totally fine to use the lore and to use the idea of where the weapon came from to justify why it has those properties, right? Just because anybody can choose it doesn't necessarily mean that it makes it less rare, in terms of the storyline. So yeah, I think a D10 would be great for that one. I do think, as I mentioned in Discord too, kind of like how the D&D wiki mentioned it, I would really like to see like some specialty features, especially with like how 2024 is now doing it, where each of the weapons has like some additional feature or aspect or something that it can do. I really do like that, and I think that would be a great way to add this. And there's a couple things you could do, I think, with the meteor hammer, because obviously it can be used as a melee weapon because you're still holding the end of it. So essentially it is a, somewhat of a bludgeoning, aspect. But I wouldn't mind giving it something like you could have advantage on grapple checks, because you essentially have, constant rope with you. And if someone gets near you, I wouldn't mind you being able to go with them and then wrap that around their neck or wrap it around an arm. I wouldn't mind saying that while wielding this weapon, you have or even if it's something, because you have to have it unfurled and ready to go like that. So you could even say, after having made an attack with this weapon, you gain the advantage on grapple checks till the end of your next turn or the start of your next turn, something along that lines, because the idea is you've used it is now ready in a position to use it for that ability, but you'd have to reset it to do so. So something like that could be really fun. And then of course, I like to push things in terms of creativity and uniqueness for my players. I would love people to start to adjust what is actually on the end of that rope, because right now I imagine if you just have the heavy thing in your hand, it's just more like, like literally like a hammer or a small, bludgeoning object, a small, I forget what the thing is. You see them in old movies where they used to like knock them out, people out with them, but just like the blackjack, look like a tiny little blackjack. So I can imagine that, but now I'm wondering, for in-game lore purposes, it would be great to have your character engineer a set of like iron, essentially brass knuckles made of like iron or something, or steel brass knuckles, and have that tied to your rope. So you could be wearing brass knuckles at all times. So you have the benefit of those as a melee weapon. And at any point you can just slip it off, and now you have your meteor hammer, essentially, using those. And then as soon as you bring it back, you can easily slip it on, so you always have both at the ready. And then of course, things like you can't drop it, can't be stolen, because if someone takes it off your hand, it's still tied to the rope. So those are the kind of things that I like to do, and those are the things that I encourage my players to do in order to make things stand out and unique. Because it would be easy to say the meteor the meteor hammer can be used as a held melee weapon or a ranged melee weapon, and again, many people would say, well, I'll just flavor it as brass knuckles, but it still has the same mechanics. But for me, it goes beyond that, right? It's not just you can say whatever you want as long as the mechanics don't change, but putting it into the mindset that by stating that it is going to be that way, everything's going to react to it that way. And I feel like that's such an understated aspect when it comes to TTRPGs and when it comes to game masters, right? I constantly say these arguments about like, oh, that doesn't really matter as long as the mechanics don't change. But it's like, I feel that is where we've gone wrong quite a bit in terms of the narrative and the communication about the game and about the storyline, because you tell people, well, as long as it's in the mechanics, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, you're not encouraging them to RP. You're not encouraging them to do anything with that information other than, well, I might as well just roll this D20. And if I don't get over a 12, I miss. And okay, I roll a D6 for damage. Like, why, if you're just telling me that it doesn't matter what happens as long as those things are preserved, then what's the fun in me saying it's, it looks like a fish versus it looks like, brass knuckles? Like, you take away the value of what that actually means when you say, when I feel like when DMs and GMs boil it down to, well, that's just flavor text. It's like, well, then you're basically telling them it doesn't matter. You're literally saying it doesn't matter what you do, what you call it, as long as it works this way. And for me, I try to discourage that way of thinking, not because I want them to homebrew their own rules, but if we were to say this thing does 1d10 damage, I want the encouragement that if they come up with the idea, can this thing be brass knuckles? I want them to know the world around them, everything around them will treat them that way. And I want that to be an aspect that comes into play, that can come into play, and that should come into play in a lot of different aspects. And I want that to fuel their creativity on what they can do. But if I just tell them, you can call it whatever you want as long as it fits these mechanical criteria, then what's really going to get them to think outside the box when I've already told them all that matters is those mechanics? So if I let them run wild with this idea that they have chosen brass knuckles and that is significant, they will use it in a significant way. And I want to do that as a DM. I want to be that DM that uses things in a significant way, that lets them have those moments, because I want the world to react to the choices that they've made, to the things that they say, to the things that they do. And this is why I have such a problem a lot of the times when referring to things as flavor text, because to me, that degrades the point of why we're saying that. You know what I mean? Because, what's the point of calling myself a paladin if it's just about how many hit dice I have and what weapons I can hold and what armor I can have? What does it matter, what race I have, as long as I know that the speed I have is compatible with all of these other features. Like, the whole point of calling these things is to represent them. And I feel like we've gotten to this point to where mechanics have won out so much that we've also lost meaning to why we separated them out in the first place. I mean, Kage and I joke about this all the time when it comes to magic users. Like, basically the choice of magic users is basically, do you want to be a quarter caster, half caster, or full caster, and what type of components do you need? Like, that's really what it feels like. It's more of a choice of the mechanical spell list than it actually has anything to do with how you got your power, why you got it. And it's more of a meme where you could play the wizard who feels like they're smarter than everybody, or play the warlock who was down on his luck, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how each of them got their powers. They're just magic users with different mechanics. And to me, that's what just loses my passion in it. That's why 5th edition just doesn't vibe with me, because I just don't get into it. It's all just chosen for me. I choose this rate. It's like if I choose a particular class and a subclass, boom, everything is chosen for me. And I get a couple ASIs or a couple feats, but again, I've already had the scaffolding built, so I have to add to what's already there. I didn't get to build anything. All I get to do is take a template and build off of it. And that's just it. That's why it's not really my vibe. It's not really what I enjoy doing, because when it comes down to it, I want my existence in that world, in that session, to matter. I want to know that the things that I do will affect things, and then vice versa. The things that happen to me will affect me, and then I'll be able to turn that into character growth and decisions. And it's so much more interesting not knowing where my character is going to go, because I learn skills based. I like choosing to have my character learn skills based on what they've faced and what they want to become, not what's going to mesh well with a thing I know I'm going to get in 5 levels. Because then again, I'm just optimizing for compatibility with the abilities, but it has nothing to do with the world I'm interacting with, or anything else like that. So yeah, I would like to see more attempts at showing off why these things matter, why we call them certain things, and really going back to encouraging people to, like the players and the DMs, to let those uniquenesses shine. And really, again, if you're not interested in homebrewing, just make sure that they provide opportunities. They don't have to have a new homebrewed mechanical how am I gonna put this? It doesn't have to have a mechanical feature or a new mechanical stat block for it, but it can just be something that makes sense for that character, for that for the player, for that character, for that gaming session, right? If someone has a polearm, like if you have a polearm master on your team, letting them be able to take falls from further heights than other players, because they can say that based on the fact that they grew up in a mountain town and used to herd sheep, if they have a background like that, and then they tie it into saying, hey, I know how to jump off where most people start taking damage at 10 feet or after 10 feet, my character doesn't take damage till after 20, because as long as I have my polearm on me, I know how to slow my descent with my polearm and land safely. That is something that you don't need to physically change these homebrew rules and decide, oh, here's how that works and blah, 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 and that's now a new feature anyone can choose. These are those moments where I've mentioned before, it's sometimes things just aren't worth putting into the mechanics, and just allowing the fact that you took everything that you built. I have a background from a mountain town, from a mountain farm town. I mentioned that in my background that this area was known for sheep, so obviously there was hills, there was sheep. I am a polearm master, so I learned with the, I forget what the thing is, but the staff that they carry, and therefore you could say that by knowing that skill set from there, I'd like to apply that to my weapon. You don't need to give them a specialty feat during a level up. You don't need to say that this weapon now has this extra ability. That can just be that player's specialty, just for that character. And those are the things that I feel get lost when you just say it can be flavored as any way that you want, as long as it mechanically works that way. Because then where is the drive and where is the encouragement to think of, well, how do I use this? Because if all I can use it is how it states, then every single weapon is only useful during combat. Like, no weapon has an intimidation feature, right? So if I ever want to roll intimidation, it doesn't matter whether I pull my weapon. And see, this is the other thing that I don't like, is like, the weapon doesn't have a modifier for intimidation. So to say, oh, well, if you pull your weapon, I'll give you a bonus to your intimidation check, but that's a homebrew rule. And that's the same type of homebrew rule that to let that one player fall from 20 feet instead of 10 feet because they have a pole arm, right? Like, that's the thing that I see people doing, is there are people doing homebrew, but some of those same people will turn around and then think that, oh, well, no, that's not, the book already says that you can or can't do that. It's like, but over here, you made it fit. So there's a lot more areas where I think people don't recognize that they homebrew. And again, I'm using homebrew loosely, but there's a lot more areas that people are, I think, more lenient on than they give themselves credit for, or that they even admit to. And I'm just trying to promote an open mindset of play how you want, play what makes it fun, but I am of the mind that the rules aren't the boundaries. The rules are the first stepping stone. I feel like that's the biggest key difference between my approach and a lot of the community that I involve myself with, especially on TikTok. A lot of the DM community that I discuss things with are of the mindset of, the more the barrier. They want to dig more into a bunch of different TTRPGs, learn all of the different mechanics. And I like seeing what all of the other TTRPGs have involved, but I also have my storyline and, my preferred mechanic set that I like for what I play and what I promote. But again, it's more of the approach. I prefer to look at everything and to build that into the narrative. So if you have a backstory and you want to take that backstory plus your fighting style plus the particular weapon you chose and craft something that is a one-off to this character that you can use, I don't see the need to make that a mechanic, to make that a feat, to go, what most of them would be like, I don't have to homebrew anything. I can just say that logically uses all of the pieces that you have in a way that they don't flat out say. And again, I feel like there's plenty of people who do this more than they admit. And that's all I try to promote, is go back to that creativity. Go back to the creativity where remove the concept of flavor text. Remove the concept that you can say whatever it is as long as these mechanics hold. Because when you do that, where, I think you stifle the creativity. You stifle those opportunities to figure out what I can do in combination that book doesn't necessarily say I can do. And I feel like those are sometimes the best ideas that you will come up with, is when people are trying to get creative and do a one-off situation. Actually, that would be a great topic for TikTok, actually, that I got to think about doing a short for, because I feel one-off spectacular situations are always more memorable than things that you can craft. So taking 5e, as an example, you can craft some pretty amazing and wild combination of abilities, using bonus actions, reactions, and coupling it with all of these various things that you can do, because 5e is so open. You can basically plan, everything out from, session 0. And being able to craft these spectacular situational moments seems to be kind of a focus a lot of the times. I guess maybe more often than not, we would call that a min-maxer. But for me, I've always felt like the most memorable times are the situations in which the players have taken all of the information available to them, or at least bits and pieces of the available information, and put it together in a way that's not only logical and that would work within the confines of the rules of the game, but just aren't explicitly written. But usually it's to solve a problem that is either not obvious to them, or they are limited in their resources due to, it being post-combat, or, some other reason why they don't have access to all of their normal, capabilities. And I feel like the more I listen to newer and newer content creators, I'm missing. I see a gap of those stories. There's not as many times where the one-off random, I let that go because it made perfect sense in the moment kind of situations. I hear those less and less, and I hear more about the, I did 5,000 damage because I did 9 attacks, and then I was able to cast a spell that put him into the atmosphere, and then we fell to earth like a meat. Like it just seems more ridiculous and chaotic instead of creative and in the moment, needed for the situation. It feels like it's more focused on, I finally got to wait long enough for this thing I planned to happen. Now it's finally gonna get to happen this one time. And I don't know, it just never sticks. They sound cool, but they're a dime a dozen. You know what I mean? There's tons more stories about people developing new stuff. And maybe it's because, for me, I feel like if I can recreate it, it's not that special. Like, I know it has to be situational, but a lot of the time it's like, if I can go build that character, that's not that impressive, other than the fact that you were the first person to put that combo together. But if you were to make up a solution in the moment for a problem that you didn't have an outright answer to, I feel like that's always going to be a more worthwhile experience, and it's always going to, I think, be more memorable for the players, for the DM, and just for the overall story. And again, I try my best to go out of my way for my players, to give them those ideas and give them the encouragement to listen to what's being said, listen to the details, and use all of those details in combination with each other. And I know that this is like, it's not as easy to do for especially newer DMs, but I feel like at a certain point, most DMs, I think, get that itch to start injecting their own ideas into the narrative, into the story. And I think this is the place that a lot could do well at starting with, is start with your players putting things together in ways that aren't obvious, or at least aren't directly written, and letting them build off of you as a DM and them as players, and just go more into that cohesive story, both sides building the story instead of everyone just following what the DM says. Abracadagger, what's going on? For plays that involve several characters to combo moves together to create. Yes, see, this is something that I've talked about with my co-host a lot. Is one thing that I still hold on to from older editions of Dungeons and Dragons in my TTRPG setting is I do dynamic initiative. So at the top of every round, everybody rerolls initiative, the enemies, all the players, and every single time it's going to be a new set. And I feel like 5th edition would do so much better with this. And mainly because having dynamic initiative allows primarily for exactly what you're talking about. All too often, or far too often, it's this idea that when you get into combat, everyone's kind of on their own. They're on an island in their initiative, and there's very little people can do to play off of each other during combat, specifically because if you're not directly after them, which is, I don't even know what the odds are of rolling right after, of rolling 2 consecutive numbers like that, but you have to have the right character in front of the other character, close enough an initiative for them to work off of. And even then, it's still 2 players doing their own individual thing, just right after each other, right? But when you do a dynamic initiative, at least for me, I think that there's a lot more opportunity to have the players start to learn each other's moves and know if a player so in my opinion, there's more opportunities to follow people up. So if you know that the ranger, is always going to duck, hide, but take a shot, and that they primarily always, target a certain character, if you happen to fall right behind them, you know how to follow that up a little bit better than excuse me, you can follow that up a lot easier in this particular round because you see it coming. You know what they're going to do. You can plan it with them a little bit more. And features that you take, or feats that you take, aspects of your character, they're a lot easier to pair up when the initiative constantly changes, because you'll get to pair up with different players, you'll get to pair up with different characters within the combat, and it's so much more fun, because what I'll do as well, kind of like what I was talking about before, is I will let my players develop strategies based on how the initiative falls, because it constantly changes. So, one of my favorite examples is if you have, like a barbarian or a half giant or someone, one character of extreme strength, and then you have, either like a dwarf or a fairy or a halfling as the other character. Being able to have the opportunity for those two to pair off of each other due to their just sheer sizes and strength differences is great, especially if they want to create some sort of situation where if one's in front of the other in initiative, then maybe they could decide, hey, when he attacks, he can give me a signal. So when the barbarian attacks, I know that I need to follow that up, right? So let's just say, after a couple rounds, it finally happens. You guys, the two people are, side to side initiative, and then you do an opportunity where the barbarian, does their attack, but ends their attack, on their knee. So then the halfling at the start of their turn, the very next initiative, can run up and jump off of the barbarian and then do like an aerial attack. And then they can tag team the enemy. Those are situations that I think are doable, but in 5th edition, they really are extremely rare to be able to set that up. And they're much more situational. But when you have a dynamic initiative, 2 characters can basically work on a system where that works. So if they always want to make sure that they're, say, within a short distance of each other, so they can always pull that off when the initiative falls in line for that, that's something where I'm not going to charge them a feat for it. They're not going to have to take some sort of economy, but it is just something that 2 warriors who have fought together enough know that in the right situation, we can piggyback off each other. And I feel like you just get more opportunities like that when you do dynamic initiative, because you're always shifting positions, and it gives you a better chance to be in the right position to pull something off. What's going on, Des? There's a rogue subclass, the Tactician. I haven't read that. Oh, it's a homebrew. I was going to say, I'm like, I haven't heard of the Tactician yet. Excuse me. Unearthed Arcana, though, when the initiative is rolled, they can swap their place with a willing creature, as well as add their intelligence bonus to their initiative. That's not bad. Okay. I really do think that like shifting initiative would be really cool. I've talked about this before, like my stagger feat, or my stagger condition, which is being able to push someone initiative. It works a lot better in dynamic initiative, where it really matters because every single round is going to be different. So being pushed in initiative one time can be detrimental, because then you could fall behind an initiative very easily based on the rolls. Whereas in 5th edition, if you're only pushed one initiative, you're going to reset right back, right? So it's not that big of a deal. But that really, I think, sounds like a needed feature, is to be able to mess with other people's initiative. I just feel like it would be a new, interesting dynamic, and just a way to bring a different tactic to the combat. I think players would find that to be very interesting and very engaging to do. And it would also just be one of those things that when it happens to you, it would feel detrimental, especially if you had something planned and then you got shifted and you're just like, well, that plan goes out the window. Those situations can be kind of funny. What have we got? Create water, up to 10 gallons of water within range of an open container. The water falls as rain in a 30-foot, extinguishing flames. Shove the enemy into water, lightning bolt onto the water. So this is something that I find always interesting too, is it has always been some very interesting debates over situational, I'll call it situational stacking, right? So we all know what, lightning bolt does, but the question being, if the creatures are wet, does that change the effect of lightning bolt? Now, the purists are definitely going to argue that lightning bolt does lightning bolt does lightning bolt, no matter the condition. Fair. Like, honestly, the game preserves better that way. So we'll say, I get it. The game preserves better if you do it that way. However, again, for me, I feel that the world that the players are in feels better when those aspects do interact. So having a situation where you were to say cast create water and wetten everything, I would probably rule that you could get a couple more, like if you were to do chain lightning, I would even rule that you can get like maybe another jump or two at the cost of dividing up. You don't get the extra damage, but you would get like an extra jump or two because it's easier to conduct. So I like the idea of stacking things. It's just the most difficult part for any game master is balance. How do you give the players what they want, or at least give them the benefit of the idea without going overboard and basically making it OP and broken? Which is, again, I prefer to do things one-off. I much prefer doing one-off opportunities than standardized, hey, that can now be a thing you can pull off, because that's where you get that's basically where you break the game and you get people who just spam like infinite spells. So I like to do one-offs because it's always easily explained as, oh, due to the situation of you were fearing for your life, or you had an adrenaline rush, or you just saw your buddy die. Like, there's always something that you can justify as why that was a one-off and make it still cool and obvious that your character had that moment, but it also preserves the fact that that's not something that you can now spam just to have infinite power. We are running low, by the way, Des. We only have like 7 more. I think we have your 5. Actually, let me look. I can tell you right now. We're only not doing one today because Kage's been busy. Yeah, we have 7 exactly. So in 7 weeks, and probably less if you have 5 backgrounds and then we have 2 others, a race and a subclass. So if we do any more multi-review days on Monday, we're probably going to get through those really quickly. But yeah, we can take a look. We were doing outside homebrew when we first started. We were doing high-low, which I was going to D&D Beyond for that. We've kind of just gone so into, like, we went full ahead into community creations, and really, I mean, we're at the point to where the leaderboard doesn't even hold any non community build anymore. Like when we first had the community, or when we first had the leaderboard, there were probably like 20 submissions that, or 20 reviews that weren't even from the community, that were just ones that I found, and those have been scrubbed off. We have what, 121 reviews, and yeah, those were scrubbed off, I think, when we got to 100. So I don't know if I'd want to go back to non-community submitted stuff, just because I know that stuff's like a dime a dozen. It's so easy to find, but I don't know. It feels like, I don't want to say easy content. It's just, I don't know what I would gain out of it. I don't know how much fun I would have, because it doesn't do anyone any benefit. It just showcases some random person's work, but it really doesn't give them any insight. And without more information, like, I like getting stuff from you guys because you can talk to us. You can tell us what your intentions were and we can explain it, right? But if I get something from somebody else, all I can go off of is how it sounds. And I don't know. I don't know if I would like that. Maybe I'll put it up to a vote in the Discord. And maybe we'll see if anybody would want me to. But let's see if we run out first. We got up anywhere between 4 and 7 weeks before we run out. So let's see what happens. So if you're talking about, okay, so going back to what Abracadabra said about the water pooled. So I love that you brought that up, because yes, if you were to use that aspect, then absolutely. I do agree that anybody within that area could be hit. I actually have a story that I've told on stream before, long ago, about a situation that a character and I, like a buddy and I, were in when I was still a player, long before I had my realm. And we were setting up defenses for a town, and we did something similar where we actually put an aqueduct into the town, and we had a way to essentially manually block up the aqueduct to where it would flood the streets, but it would only flood to the point to where it would be only like an inch of flooding throughout the main streets. So the idea being that if we ever got invaded, we could hit that switch, flood the streets with just an inch of water, So it would be perfect for, you know, a bunch of people in armor and metal and, you know, horses with horseshoes. If they ever just start, you know, strolling through, we'd flood the city. And then we had I forget exactly how it was built. It was my friend's character who built it, so I forget the details, but they essentially built a way for them to essentially upcast I can't remember if it was chain lightning bolt, or if it was something else, but of the same effect, where it would be cast from one central point and it would actually cascade through the town using the waterway and lightning rods that were strategically placed to continue jumping. And I think it was upcast, but the ended effect was that anybody caught in town would get the standard effect of the spell, not the upcast, because the upcast was to make it enough to cross the town, where as the damage obviously was the balancing factor. So I'm all for stuff like that. If you can make it make sense within the confines of the game and the realm's physics and essentially the way that I run the game, you know, my logic, I'm 100% for it. I think all of that's fantastic. I don't know what's going on with my viewer count. It keeps popping from like 1 to 6 every now and again, so I have no idea what is going on with Twitch right now. But good questions. I do, yeah. I think that more DMs need to be comfortable letting their characters and their players really engage with the details that they're being given, not just the mechanics. That's I guess the last hour that I've been ranting. That's the end of the story, or that's the big story that I wanted to tell. There is that DMs should just be more comfortable letting players experiment with the details, not just the mechanics. You have a list of what we've looked at, so you can provide more new stuff. What do you mean, Des? You mean like for review stuff? I mean, yeah, if you have new stuff, Kage will know whether or not you've already submitted it. But I'm not really sure exactly what you mean by that, if you're not talking about reviews. Oh, okay, yeah. So I think, yeah, because I think Kage still has a list of all of the non-community stuff that we had reviewed back in the day. Of course, all of the live streams are still in the VOD channel, so those are still available. But yeah, I don't have a list of all of those episodes. I don't even know what those items were. Like, do I even have access to those? Is it even on here? Oh, those are true. Oh, and that list doesn't even count the showcases that we've done. No, so they've been so the non-communities have been completely removed, so I don't even have access to the non-communities. I'd have to go back to YouTube or ask Kage if he still has the list. Oh yeah, you can go to in Discord under the schedule channel. You can hit the leaderboard button. There's a leaderboard link, and you can go to the leaderboard and you can filter by your name, and it will give you all of your submissions. I don't know if it will show. I don't know if Kage has it set up to show what you have not had reviewed. I think it only shows what we've reviewed. But right now, the only thing I have waiting on you, or the only thing that we have from you that we're waiting on, we have 5 backgrounds: henchman, laboratory assistant, carpenter, ranch hand, and doctor. That's all we have from you right now. We got something from Marty, but that's on hold. And then we also have a subclass from Hecate. Cool. Yeah. Let us know. I think, because I want to say from you, I think it was just your I think we've still just been working off that homebrew link that you gave us like forever ago. I think that's literally the only, I think that's what we've been working off of, as far as I know. Because remember, originally you gave us like everything. Let's see. This thing has we already looked at this thing. I don't even know what we've looked at anymore. Hold on. Oh, we have. Okay. So yeah, so the link that I have from you has the Hydraborn, which we reviewed. Diamond Dogs, that was one of the first videos we ever did. Cappyborn, Chameleon Folk, the Mothkin. We have the Faberfolk. Loved that one, by the way. Your Harpy, your Skoskra, the Otterkin. Oh, the Kenku optional variant. And then let's see. Have we reviewed these? This looks like. Yep, we reviewed the Swindler. Yep, so there's the Swindler. The Henchman, that's the one that's going to come up. Those are the other ones that are going to come up. And then have we done your feats? Let me see if we've done your feat yet. Okay, so I do see that there's a couple of feats in here. Oh wait, hold on. Maybe we've seen those. Feats. No, we haven't seen your feats yet. Okay, so it does look like there are some feats in that booklet that Kage hasn't added yet. Things like Flame Touch, Eldritch Expertise. I think we've gone through your invocations. There's the items that are in here. The Empty Grave Tattoo, Gleaming Dagger. I don't think we've gone through those yet. Yeah, so there's a couple things in the booklet, in your homebrew booklet, that we still haven't converted yet. Let me double check here. Let me see what's going on. Which subclasses do you know of? I see the 4. Oh, yeah, double check. I think Kage has it all up to date. Created an oath of hatred a while back. Basically felt as his god failed him when his previous party died. He said to hell with the gods, he'll smite his enemies down with them. It's featured all through sheer determination and pure hatred of the gods. That's interesting. I actually dig that. If you're ever interested, we do normally we do reviews on Mondays. We just don't have it up to date right now because my co-host who normally writes them up has been busy IRL. So we didn't have that today, but if you are interested, you can join the Discord and submit those. We would love to check that out. That sounds really cool. I really like Oath Magic. I just don't like that they're paladins. I like it. I love Oath Magic. I just think it should have been its own class. I don't think they should have turned paladins into Oath paladins. I think Oath oath bearers, I think that should have just been its own class. An oath bearer should have been a brand new type of class. I think they should have left paladins as holy warriors because they were basically like the fighting version of clerics. I think that was a fine separation. I think oath bearer and oath breaker should have just formed their own soul class, because I think that they think oath magic in general could have had a better lore to it, and just it could have been better expanded. But I think putting it to with paladin, I don't know. I just don't think it was the right move. I'm not huge on the fact that it got rid of the religion or anything else like that. I feel that there was a space for the cleric paladin combo. I really feel like that was a strong ideology and a strong not ideology. I think it was just a strong character concept of how the lore would work. I think oath bearing is an amazing feature of magic. I think it would be a great representation of a new magic source. I just feel that we lost some good aspects of having a healing type warrior like a paladin, but we gained still the oath taking aspect. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't play a lot of 5th edition, so it doesn't bother me that much. I just do my own kind of oath magic. But oath magic is essentially it's kind of more akin to warlocks, except you're making a pact with magic itself, I guess. His smites were necrotic damaged. Ooh, I like that. I like the idea. Oh, I think Kage would like that too. Yeah. That would be cool. Necrotic damage bypasses resistance. I'd be curious to see if it had if it was like good against celestials or anything, because I do like the necrotic damage, but if it were good against celestials in any way, or yeah, that would be interesting. That would be or like good, not necessarily good against celestials, or had like advantage, kind of like how clerics have turn undead. If you had like advantage against clerics because like they actually represent the faith that you can't stand, or like our hatred. So it's almost like when you're back. Oh, so it would be kind of interesting to have. I know that 5th edition doesn't like this. This is why I say all these ideas, but I know that these are more like, these are better ideas for not 5th edition. But similar to how barbarians have rage and they have all of these extra features, if you could give that to this type of paladin, but only against clerics, so they could do like, an extra die of damage when they're fighting clerics. They can get like an extra 2 AC when they're fighting clerics, or they get like an extra 2 to hit when they're fighting clerics. That would just be a very unique and interesting approach, because you used to see this a lot in older editions, where if you're fighting a very specific thing, you get this bonus, and I think that could be something that would benefit something along that lines of, if your oath is against the gods themselves, why not have a like an added bonus or an advantage against their followers, like the ones that represent the very thing that you're trying to take down. I could work with that. I could work a lot with that. All right. Des, did you figure it out? Are we missing anything, or were you just thinking that we had done a lot more? I mean, we've done quite a few of yours. What was that? Des, there you are. I mean, we have done 16 of the 21 that we have from you, and we have at least half a dozen, or maybe half a dozen to a dozen still in your booklet that haven't been transcribed. Ooh, Way of the Snake Lord Monk. A 3rd casting monk. Interesting. Okay. Way of the Snake. I'm trying to think, what is that giving me? Way of the Snake. Like, you could go cliche and it could be like poison, like you could have like, some sort of like poison damage or resistance to poison. But I'm trying to think of more of the fighting style and how that would translate into like 5e mechanics. Like what exactly what kind of benefit would that give you? So like Eldritch Knight or Arcane Trickster. Okay. Yeah, I'm really trying to think of like how would I go about representing like Way of the Snake. So you'd obviously get good on you'd probably have like stealth. I'd probably give you not quite like a camouflage kit or like a disguise kit because that'd be more like chameleon, but ooh, like being able to get past without trace, like at 3rd level, that would make a lot of sense for Way of the Snake. Bonuses to stealth would be really good. Basically Cobra Kai, yeah. um okay. Yeah, I think that's what I would do. I think I would focus on like the stealth, the blending in, precision strikes. I think I would you know, deal with that. Spending key points for poison damage on unarmed strikes. Okay, that's that's I don't I could see where that going there. Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot that I could do with that. I would play around with like the reaction action economy. Key points would be a very interesting factor and how those would spend. I mean, personally, I don't know if I would go the poison route. But it does, you know, seem to make sense. I don't know, poison is just kind of weak. I just wish that there was something more. You know, but this could be a perfect opportunity to create, you know, to homebrew your own, like, you know, like we've had permafrost condition invented, you know, here on stream. I you know, why not have something like neurotoxin that this thing has to where it actually you know, like it's slow. So instead of just having the effects of poison, it actually affects them the way that a snake bite would. Brute Fighter. I am not familiar with the Brute Fighter in Unearthed Arcana. I haven't looked at, yeah, I don't think I've looked at that one before. I would also be curious for the Way of the Snake. I'd like to change up how its flurry of blows works. I mean, obviously, I mean, I would definitely give it some sort of, you know, grapple opportunity, but maybe like turn flurry of blows into, I don't know, because I feel like, you know, with the snake, it's not so much about multiple attacks; it's about one decisive strike. So being able to turn flurry of blows more into even like a reaction, you know, when attacked, you can use your flurry of blows to deliver a precise strike, you know, causing not only damage but um, you know, like slowing them down, or, you know, like causing them some like ongoing issues. There's a lot that I like about what monks can do, but I feel like there's so many things that are still untapped with that subclass. Like I feel like there's so many areas that we aren't really fleshing out in terms of what types of monks we could have. You know what I mean? Out of all of the subclasses, I think monks are one of the most versatile and still open to exploration. Some of, you know, you can only have so many types of wizards. You can have only so many types of fighters. The only thing that really changes with them is their weapon. But you know what I mean? Like for monks, I feel like there's still so many variations that we haven't opened up yet. More so than the interesting. It's simpler than the champion. Okay. 4 extra attacks with flurry of blows, but if you hit, it only deals equal to half your monk level. Interesting. So just a bunch of individual bites. No dice rolls. Oh, okay. So just flat. Okay, interesting. I mean, I don't mind the use of flat damage every now and again. I think flat damage has its place, but has to be, well timed. Um, flat damage can get kind of OP if it can get spammy. Ooh. All right. Oh, all right. Well, what else? This was a good amount of conversation. This was more than I was expecting. For kind of a last minute change to the stream today. So I'm glad that we got some conversation. A healing cantrip. I would love to see that. I think there's a place for it, but I'd like to see how it actually works. Interesting. So interesting. Yeah, I'd love to see the full breakdown of that, because I think it's missing. The problem is, again, in 5e, I think it could be more dangerous than anywhere else. Oh, that's... Hang on. Question, does it have to be a willing participant? Not that that would truly matter. I'm curious if the participant A has to be willing. And does that mean that it wouldn't work if they were out of hit die? Or would you have to consume one of your own? Because what I'm trying to get at is, should it consume your own? Because it is a cantrip. And I'm just trying to think of like the implications of, I could cast this on someone, force you to use a hit die. Not that that would have any combat significance, but I'm just trying to work out, like, for me, it's always about working out how does the logic of the magic work. But if you had a cantrip that could force you to use your own die, that could be interesting. That could be equally spammable though, but you might have a lower hit die than they do. It allows the caster to let the recipient consume a hit die to heal, and it scars as do. Okay. I feel it must consume a resource. Yeah, no, it definitely has to consume a resource. I was just wondering, should it consume your own hit die or the other creature's hit die? Like, I like it consuming the hit die. I just don't know whose it would technically have to. Interesting. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. I'll have to think on that one. That one's gonna make me think, because a healing cantrip is pretty awesome, but I'm just really trying to think how the implications of that. It's not bad though. It's really not bad. I mean, it's small enough that it's used. I mean, it's small enough to not be concerning for how a player would use it, but it's also, in a sense, substantial enough. I mean, yes, it is substantial enough to be useful in plenty of situations. I mean, that's able to stabilize someone, bring someone back, from, zero. Again, not amazing as a combat feature, but I kind of like that about it. It's not everything. Again, 5e makes everything about combat, so I kind of like that it has more aspects of it. Brute TLDR, 3rd level brute force. Adds a D4 to weapon attack. D6 a 10th. Okay. 7th level brute at a D6 to all saving throws. Oh, wow, okay. Additional fighting style at level 18 at the start of your turn. Okay, yeah, that is pretty basic. Oh, okay. So you wouldn't let it work on unconscious. Okay, that's good to know. I do like that you actually have that in there. That's an important, I think, language to have, is knowing whether or not it would be able to help someone with saving throws or not. So needing them to be conscious, good. I think, yeah, I think that I don't think that that's really that broken, because again, even in the heaviest of combat, I don't expect a hit die to really. I would not consider a hit die a game changing amount of HP, right? Like in no way, even every single round, I don't think you're going to be able to burn enough hit die to be concerning. Especially because you're only going to be able to do it once for one person at one hit die each. Yeah, I think that works out well. Can you use it on yourself? I'm curious, did you write that into it? Can it be used on self, or is it only on another person? If you use it on yourself, then you'd be burning your own hit die. You can use it on yourself. Okay. Yeah, I really can't think off the top of my head. I mean, this is normally where, Kage would be talking, so he'd have more to say and I'd have more time to think about it. But I can't immediately think, aside just from the initial aspect of essentially what you have is infinite healing, not to a particular source, but just a source of infinite healing. It still begs more thought, just to make sure that on a grander scale, there's nothing too off about that. But overall, I think for a player in a party, that doesn't sound extremely imbalanced. As you level up, the amount of hit die used is the same as an account. Okay. Oh, can you upscale this? Or can you can you upcast this? It scales as you do, but again, I don't know if 5th edition normally lets you upcast a cantrip, but is this something that you've considered being able to be upcast to a leveled spell? Okay, so can't be upcast, just straight one cantrip, one hit die. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if 5th edition ever allowed for that or not. I don't think they would. I don't know any edition that would have, but again, I haven't read the 2024 edition, so I have no idea what they've changed. Okay, they still can't be upcast. Okay. I have not read 2024 edition. I haven't read any of the 2024 updates, so I have no idea. I stay willfully ignorant. I like learning some of the new things that they come out with, but overall, it's not my preferred system. So I like to talk more about the lore than the mechanics, because yeah, 5th edition, it's great. Like, hey, it's great for the community, but not my cup of tea. So 20th level would be 5 up to 5 hit dies. So I still like that there's still a limit to it. Like, it's up to 5 hit die as long as they have that many hit die. Interesting. Yeah. I'm curious how Kage would feel about that. I'll have to talk to him the next time, or maybe this Friday I'll talk to him about it, because I really want to know if he can come up with a situation where this wouldn't feel balanced, because I'm having a hard time thinking of a situation that this would be so abusive. Outside of some really interesting creativity. You've got a healing cantrip. Healing, maybe. Well, we'll see what that healing means. probably missed that. Sure, I just missed that text, whatever. All right. Let's see. What do we got? Well, Des, if you want to share your healing cantrip, we can go over that real quick. Otherwise, I might be cutting it short. My dinner is almost here. And I really don't have anything else for today. Glad we got a couple conversations in. Oh, here we go. So it's an action. Not sure if it's a cantrip, if it's an action. No, I'm just joking. So action 15 feet, purpose medical instant. Brief contest with magic that would normally heal a wound. You reach out and tend to a creature and provide relief to any condition without affecting that creature. You make any ailment feel less painful or aggravating. Headaches, cantrips, joint pains, etc. You can make these feel better in an instant. Additionally, these cast on a creature with less than its maximum hit points. The pain of any existing wounds is lessened and becomes manageable. Interesting. Just call it Tylenol. So that's interesting. And see, this is where like I'm fascinated by something like this, because these are the kind of spells that I have throughout High Point. They're just not really spells I really consider to be part of any spell list, because for the most part, these are the things that I like the characters or the players to be able to discover as needed, or, as situationally appropriate. But I do like, and I think there's a place for something like that, though I think most people would consider that that's going to be explicitly like RP based. Hi, are we just cuddling right now? Is that what's happening? Okay. All right. Well, I guess this is just happening. My cat will sometimes just decide. Hi, bud. It's more of a, yeah. So I do like it though, because I think that there are situations in which like what that would be kind of cool to do is, because you're saying that you can kind of essentially relieve most like conditions as a DM, what I think I would do with that is allow you to like basically delay combat effects. So let's say someone got poisoned, right? Or they were under some effect that would like either slow them down or cause them to do less damage. Just they're under some effect. I could see this thing, say, giving them 2 rounds where that thing is still happening to them. They just don't know it yet. So if something were to do like 1d4 damage each round, you could give them 2 rounds where they still roll the damage, but they don't officially take it until 2 rounds later. But then they take it all at once. So that's where my mind goes with something like this, because I could see it being used in roleplay, like a lot of roleplay, especially with NPCs. But to make this truly like battle capable, the idea of someone being inflicted with something and you being able to say, hey, it's going to come a little bit harsh, but you have like 2 rounds to not deal with it. I feel like there could be some utility there. Triage shouldn't heal everyone without consuming spell slots. With peasant NPCs, it would be, yeah, and that's where my mind goes. There are in High Point that would be very abusive to be able to do, and that's why, like in 5e, I'm having a hard time seeing the imbalance, because I don't think for a combat heavy game, but infinite healing has problems when you can charge for healing, and that's where I'm like a healing cantrip. That's why I'm like, I don't know. That's why I was debating earlier whether or not it should cost the caster's hit die or not, because to have unmitigated healing like that, it's very difficult to in-game lore explain why the magic is that freely usable. But again, for 5e, I don't think it's that much of a problem. Okay, still a work in progress. Okay. Yeah, I'm really curious to see if that's going to be part of the doctor background. Then we'll definitely have to see how well that works. But consider the idea of it just delays the effects, because if something were to, damage you, like a little bit per round, or afflict you with something, being able to overcome that, but then it, hits you even harder, something that, like let's say something that, halves your speed, that would mean that if you put it off for 2 rounds, that means instead of having your speed, it would take half your speed twice. So therefore you'd lose all your speed 2 rounds later. But for 2 rounds, you wouldn't have been slowed at all. So there would be some uniqueness to that, but I don't know how the verbiage would work exactly. Yeah, and I'm glad you're thinking about that, Dagger. I do think that it's an edition specific issue. Like, because I'm like 5th edition, or because I don't play 5th edition, I primarily play like a 2nd edition Foundation. Infinite healing just has so many in-game benefits, mainly for money, that I'd have to limit it there. But when I'm thinking of like a 5e game, there's very little that most DMs run a game where they wouldn't really be able to abuse it for money or anything. Maybe a little bit here and there, gain some favor, gain some cash. But I don't think they'd be able to like set up shop and set up, like an ongoing business. Oh, you're a 3 and 5e? I mean, they definitely had a lot going for them. They did a lot of advancements. There's something just about 2e that just really stuck with me. I love most of the foundational aspects of it. I really got grounded into the Forgotten Realms lore, which is kind of what spurred High Point. So, I mean, High Point's no longer D&D, but it's heavily based off of AD&D 2nd edition, with a lot of 3 and 3.5 inspiration thrown in. Oh, your Oath of the Sanguine. Did we look at that one? I can't really look at my computer because this thing is deciding that it's cuddle time. Thaco was not that difficult. Everyone hates Thaco for no reason. And especially with the fact that we have digital character sheets now, like Thaco is simply a quick, like, calculation that you can throw in, and all you have to do is put down what the what the AC of the creature is, and you know what you have to roll. So you started with the first. Yeah, my OG DM took us through all of the original editions for a while in one giant story campaign. So I started with 2nd edition, but we ended up jumping all the way back to Chainmail. Did 1st edition primarily, Dungeons and Dragons 1st edition. Then we went to AD&D, played a little bit of 3.5. I've played 4th, played 5th, played Pathfinder, and probably about a dozen other TTRPGs here and there, either looked into or tried to play. But I don't know, I'm always a fan of D&D, not because of any specific, like, they do it best. It's where I started, it's what I'm comfortable with, but it's also just what my setting and what my campaign is modeled after. I don't disregard any other TTRPGs. I just don't desire spending the money and spending the hours to learn a whole new flesh of mechanics when me and my players have fun with our story that's been going on for like 10 years. So what can I say? It's fine. It's all about having fun. That's what we are all about here, is just do it your way. And as long as you're having fun, then you can't be doing it wrong. Like, the only way you can play this game wrong is if you're not having fun. Like, simple as that. Yeah, 5e, I will give 5e all the credit. The ability and the expansiveness that they've done, the growth that they've been able to make, and the way that it is, 5e is like the adventure leagues. It's like the adventure league of the editions, right? It's the one that standardizes it to where if I create a character with this DM, I can create that same character with any DM. Kind of like Adventure League, where I can take my character and play the same story. At least with 5e, it's like all of the ways that people do things are much more standardized and much more easy to pick up. And, you learn rules from one DM and they're going to translate pretty well because everybody, works off of the very, very like hardcore rule sets. Whereas like with the older editions, there could be some nuance or some misinterpretation. Nowadays, it seems that there is pretty hard lines with what most players and DMs agree with and don't agree with. Yeah, 5e is definitely, we call it a superhero simulator. It also panders to the it panders to the players. It doesn't ever really require them to make sacrifice or take away. It's always additive. These are the things that we've commented on before. So I agree. Oh, is mom home? Yeah, is mom home? Are you gonna go? Are you gonna go say hi to mom? Yep. Are you gonna go? All right. Well, it sounds like my food's here, and he does not want me to stream anymore. Hi. Are you gonna go now? Okay. Now you're gonna go and say it. Okay. Now I'm free. All right, y'all. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. Sorry we didn't get to a review, but we will be back next Monday with more reviews. We will be back on Friday with more scheduled content. Dagger, I know you're new, so yeah, every Monday we normally do reviews from the community. So if you are interested, again, hop in the Discord and you could submit anything that you'd like to be reviewed. That will get thrown into the succession. We do have a leaderboard that you can go check. Go to the scheduled channel in the Discord and you can check out the leaderboard link, and it'll show you everything that we've done. It'll give you a link to the page of the creation as well as the YouTube video where you can go see all of our live streams. But other than that, Fridays we usually do D&D content or we'll play video games. Sometimes we do IRL streams, sometimes we do a cooking stream. Fridays are just kind of a mishmash of whatever. Mondays are always D&D reviews. And then if I pop online any other day, it's usually the game. So yeah, that sounds fun. We'd like to see you again. If not, it was great to meet you. Thank you for stopping by. Des, thanks for showing up. Sorry we didn't get to one of your items, but again, we have 5 of your backgrounds ready to go. Those will be started up next week. Oh, is there actually when you see an ally get hurt, you can spend a hit die to reduce the damage. That's still pretty cool though. I don't mind the reduction of damage, but yeah, not quite the same as healing. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, but I'm gonna go get some food now. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I hope you have a great week ahead of you. We'll see you on Friday. Have a good night. Cheers.